my friends, and welcome to this first weekend update after Christmas. From very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Saturday. I trust that everybody had a fantastic Christmas. The lovely Christine and I did. Unfortunately, this year was one of Wyoming's stereotypic brown Christmases, though I don't remember one being this warm in a long time. We didn't get to make a snowman out in the front yard, but all things being equal, the 50-degree temperatures were pretty refreshing. I'm sure in the coming days there will be at least a couple of ill-informed pieces claiming that this year's Christmas weather is all a result of global warming. I don't really care what it is. I'm in favor of more of it. While it is true that Wyoming's traditionally cold winter weather keeps both left coasts at bay, I think we could deal with a few more days like Wednesday and Thursday. After all, if you really don't like the weather, just wait a little bit. It'll change. Even though I joke about it, in Wyoming we do have all four seasons. It's just sometimes they all take place within the same week. But this Christmas was unseasonably warm. There's a piece in the Cowboy entitled, Wyoming Breaks 150-Year-Old High Temperature Records. If you're questioning the veracity of any of this climate change hoopla, listen to this. Quote, a high temperature of 55 was recorded at Central Wyoming Regional Airport in Riverton on December 25th. The previous record was 41, which was set in 2021 and matched in 2024, making it the warmest Christmas in Riverton's documented history. End quote. So only warmer than last year. Got it. I'm sure that one was just a problem with grammar. Perhaps just a tiny bit more accurate is this next part. Meteorologist Matthew McLaughlin of the National Weather Service's office in Cheyenne said December 25th was the warmest Christmas on record for all 7 of the agency's long-term climate stations in Wyoming and Nebraska. It was a pretty warm one, McLaughlin said. We've had records in Cheyenne that go back as far as 1875, and we've had 4 consecutive days of record-breaking highs. Cheyenne shattered its old record of 60 degrees, which was set in 2005. With a high of 64 on December 25th. The old record for December 24th was 60 degrees in 1955, but was broken on Wednesday with a high of 64. Here's what I'm getting from that. This Christmas wasn't all that warmer than it was 70 years ago, and then it got colder, and now it's warmer. And, according to Cowboy meteorologist Don Day, 2010 wasn't all that different. Here's what he says. December 2010 sticks out. We had blocks in the Pacific and Greenland, and temperatures were about as warm as they are now. That's the last time December was this warm on a statewide regional basis. And then things got back to average once the block went away in January and February was severely cold. There was tons of winter weather, but it wasn't like a light switch. It was a process. And then he says, quote, it's interesting that we've had similar situations in the past, but it's not a guarantee at all. In those situations, the end result was a lot of winter after it was really warm in December. Aha! In other words, while there are obviously historical analogies that we could make, you really don't know what's going to happen with the weather until it happens tomorrow or later on this afternoon. Yesterday was 60, today, screaming blizzard. In my mind, the only thing that you could really be certain about when it comes to the weather is it is whatever it turns out to be. For example, I remember one Memorial Day weekend at the cabin where it was 80 degrees one day, and the next morning we woke up to 3.5 feet of snow. Yeah, that was fun. And I'll tell you another thing that I'm certain of. The only reason people in the news talk about the weather is there is nothing else happening that day. All I can tell you is that our trip to Johnson County, was put on hold for this afternoon. The last thing you want to be doing at night is attempting to traverse Piney Creek in the middle of a screaming blizzard. Well, enough about the weather. It is what it's going to be. But there is a piece in the Pravda on the Platte. Being Christmas time, they couldn't resist the temptation of talking about illegal aliens. Oh, these poor illegal aliens, just coming here for a better life, and how dare you rip them from their families during the holiday season. Barf. Actually, the bulk of the article isn't half that bad. It's entitled, Operation Targets Unquote, Unqualified, Unsafe, and Undocumented Drivers. 3/4 of it documents a reporter's ride-along with 287G certified deputies in Laramie County. This is the one that the rest of the media has been up in arms about. But the 287G program is a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement initiative that authorizes state and local law enforcement to perform certain immigration enforcement functions under federal oversight. This is what allowed Laramie County Sheriff Kozak to arrest 40 illegal aliens for what the Cap City News called operation of a motor vehicle by an undocumented, unlicensed, or unsafe commercial driver. That's 40 people who were in our country illegally, who were not only not licensed to drive, but not in possession of an actual CDL, or, for most of them, not in possession of the ability to even read or speak English. Illegal alien drivers. Terrifying, I know, and I'm going to tell you all about it in just a second. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. Today's post-Christmas installment of Weekend Update is brought to you by Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. If you've come to this country legally and you need a house to live in, the person you should call is Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. If you're a legal immigrant and you want to move to Wyoming, call Rebecca. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. One more time, 307-699-3519. Today's installment of the program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. Have you realized that after Christmas, now you really don't have any room in your garage anymore? No place for the missus to park her car, and certainly not enough room for your four-wheeler or your motorcycle. This is a perfect opportunity to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. They'll put up any type of quality metal building you can think of. So just call them. Tell them all about all the stuff you bought for Christmas and now you don't have enough room, and they will handle all the details. Whether it actually is another garage or a barn or maybe something bigger like a roping arena or a giant warehouse for your business, the two guys you need to talk to are Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Give them a call. Their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. Now is the time to start making all of those New Year's resolutions. And one of them at the top of your list ought to be to sign up for the Outrider, the official newsletter of Cowboy State Politics. To do that, go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, and the first thing you'll see will be a pop-up. Just put your email address in there and hit submit, and I'll put you on the list. And while you're there at the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the program. That way you can be notified every time I publish a brand new episode of Cowboy State Politics. You can also do that anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Just make sure that you do. Start the new year off right and get signed up for everything Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to the program. Now, if you or I are pulled over and it's discovered that we are driving without a license, we may be going to jail, or at the very least will be issued a very large ticket. Predictably, outlets like Wildfile not only didn't recognize the contradiction, but instead advocated on behalf of all of these illegal aliens who are already breaking the law just by being here, not to mention driving. But here's what Wildfile said, quote, To immigration and civil liberty advocates, Kozak is describing the type of enforcement that has long driven allegations that the 287G program invites racial profiling in communities. Quote, "It really is what we've been talking about, what people within the community are afraid of. We don't know why someone is being targeted for a traffic violation, and hopefully it wasn't racially motivated, as in someone seeing a brown person and then, oh, it just so happens you see their brake light was out." Yeah, everything is race with these people. With liberals, the law doesn't seem to matter when it comes to them potentially being voters. Anyhow, like I said, 3/4 of the piece in the Pravda on the Platte the Casper Star Tribune isn't half bad journalism. It's the last column and a half that calls the entire piece into question. Writing on page A2 under the column heading of The Morals, Ivy Seacrest says, quote, "Some applaud the efforts to work with ICE, while others say Sheriff Kozak and his deputies are doing extensive damage to local trust between immigrants, people of color, and law enforcement. Quote, people who have come here illegally. Some are searching for a better way of life," Velda here says. And it's a moral conundrum, because I don't blame anybody for wanting to better their life or better their family. But there's a legal way to do it, end quote. By Veldier, I'm referring to Chief Deputy Aaron Veldier, who is very much in favor of law enforcement. Note what he says: if you want to come to this country, there's a legal way to do it. He's absolutely right. I applaud his and everyone else on the Laramie County Sheriff's Department's efforts. But I disagree with him on one point. This is not a moral conundrum. It has never been legal, nor moral, to break the law because of your own personal circumstances. While there has always been great discussion about what is moral and what is not moral, the old 1828, through its column and a half of discussion, sums it up in its first definition. Quote, "Relating to the practice, manners, or conduct of men as social beings in relation to each other, and with reference to right and wrong. The word moral is applicable to actions that are good or evil, virtuous or vicious, and has reference to the law of God as the standard by which their character is to be determined." Ah, right and wrong, good and evil. If there is a process to come into this country legally, and there is, the United States admits around 2 million people every year legally through our immigration system. 2 million. And that doesn't even count legitimate claims for asylum. Unquestionably, then, it cannot be right and therefore moral to break the law when there's a legal way to do what you want to do, and then to continually break the law with such offenses that would get any normal legal citizen thrown in jail or fined extensively. Secondarily, the potential results of our poor, wayward, illegal aliens' actions could not be considered moral either. By the way, we are way down the illegal alien justification rabbit hole, if you hadn't noticed. But if you intentionally jump in a 30,000-pound vehicle without the ability to read anything in English, which presumably includes the operator manual for that vehicle, or anything for that matter, there is no way possible that you have any regard for anyone else on that road. We might describe that as reckless disregard, which again is definitely not moral. Now, I will admit that there are some laws, definitely in our nation's history, and some of them today, that are certainly not moral. For instance, there are some laws that allow you to kill a little baby. Definitely not right and definitely not moral. That one happens to be evil as well. But there isn't a law that says that you have to do that. There are lots of other options. And in the case of our poor, downtrodden, wayward, illegal alien drivers, they have other options also, like entering the country legally. And so, making the illegal choice is not right, and again, not moral. And even if you disagree with the law, there are ways to challenge it legally. We have this thing called the judicial system, the courts. Of course, it would help if you weren't a felon and you weren't committing felonies on a daily basis. But you see, no way that you look at this situation can we say that anything these illegal alien drivers are doing is right or moral. But let me tell you why the media continues to beat this drum. It's justification, and it's a bit of a red herring, too. The first part is basically the media saying, yes, we know that they broke the law, but the law is unjust. It's not right. You see where I'm going with this? How many times have you heard this old line? But the Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's not a law. That's a poem, and it has nothing to do with the conversation. Anyway, the first part allows them to admit that these illegal aliens are breaking the law, but arguing that the law in and of itself is not right because, this nation was built on immigrants. It's playing games with definitions. They're not illegal aliens anymore. They're immigrants. And if they're immigrants, they shouldn't be subject to all of these terrible, tyrannical immigration laws. But if you're an immigrant, it kind of means you came here legally, not crossing over the border in the dead of night and then fashioning a whole bunch of fraudulent documents to convince law enforcement that you are not who you actually are. Multiple felonies a day, like I was saying. The second thing they're doing with all of this morality speak is what liberals always do. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Focus on what I tell you to. It's a question of whether we should do something or whether we must do something. The first part requires judgment. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Well, in this situation, it might be this way. In that other case, it might be the opposite. Situational ethics, the ridiculous idea that things are right or wrong depending on the circumstances. And this is why it's a red herring, because our system doesn't work that way. Either you broke the law or you didn't. You're either guilty or not guilty. There's no kind of breaking the law. It's like being pregnant. You can't be kind of pregnant. You either are or you aren't. There's no middle ground there. But all of this moralizing surrounding illegal aliens is really the media's attempt to convince you of things that just aren't true. I'm sure you've probably heard the trope that no person is illegal. Hogwash. Or that everyone has constitutional rights. Utter buffoonery. You don't have constitutional rights unless you're a citizen. But you see what I'm getting at. All of this is misdirection. If you don't like the law, change it. If you break it, it means you're a criminal and you ought to be punished for it, whether that means being thrown in jail or thrown over the big, really high fence. Now, don't take any of this to mean that I'm going after Deputy Veldier. I'm not. Actually, I applaud him. He does his job, even though he might have questions about it. He's enforcing the law the way it ought to be. The law is the law, and if you break it, you ought to be punished for it. Period. End of sentence. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of Weekend Update. I hope you had a great Christmas. We certainly did. And we'll be back at full steam on Monday. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.